Today we're going to talk about oak framing and the development of the Oakrite system.
Post that's just ejected from the machine.
In here we have 4 framing teams.
It's our panel framing machine.
Wave down there, Pete. Say hello. This is my home workshop now with my tools laid out to give you a guided tour. This is the type of workshop I started off building my oak frames in, or the original oak frames for Oakrites. Here are my drills. So you'd have a set on the ground, a set on the scaffold when you're working on site, and perhaps a set inside the house and a set outside the house. This is my hammer that I used to work with on site. It's got a long handle, so you get more impact when driving an oak peg. American hammer again, but with a titanium head. So for driving pegs, a lovely hammer to use. The first saw I ever bought was this distance saw. That's how we would have started off originally, hand making oak frames. Moved on to the saws that you see every carpenter with today. This is an Irwin, very sharp, very efficient, and you do actually throw them away. Gently we moved on to using circular saws. Here we see is my old Hitachi here. This was the saw that most workers, or a lot of oak framing carpenters would have used. What we call making by hand now, there are 2 ways. There is a drill, then the chain mortiser, and that chain there would cut the mortise. These are my chisels. I would be using a chisel like this a lot of the time. Beautiful chisel here to use for cutting away a fine piece of oak on the side of a chisel, taking off a small fine shaving. A corner chisel, you just drive that down in, that will take out the corner, and these are the chisels that I would have used. Back in the day when I started, we would use chainsaws quite regularly. We don't tend to use them so much anymore. For the real heavy work, this rig or framework on this bar of a chainsaw here will actually cut out big slabs. This is my old thumper. So we would use this here if we're knocking a piece of steel work. I've got a copper head on here, but when I'm hitting the oak or knocking the oak, this is a raw hide head. So this is what I would knock the oak frame together with. Now what we're doing, we're going to arrive at the Oakrite's new workshop, and I'm going to take you on a journey of exploration through the machine shop and how we machine the components, into the oak framing shop where we put all the oak frames together, and then into encapsulation where we build the walls and roofs that go around the oak frame, and then the dormer window systems and the eaves and verge systems that finish the project off. Here is our planer. This will plane 4 sides at once. That planer will plane each piece of timber before it goes onto the Hundegger K2 machines. And now once the timber, the oak has run through the 4-sided planer, here we can see this is the finished product as we would be making it into your oak frame. So moving on to the main machine, we have Richard who runs the machining team.
Okay, so this post that's just ejected from the machine. So my job is to process the timber, make sure it's all coming out accurate, and keep an eye on the quality that we're sending through to the framers. So I've been working for Oakrites for just under 10 years. Started in the end cap team when we were working in a cattle shed, and after a year doing that, making panels, I come into the machine shop.
So this was the original machine that we bought, a Hundegger machine, 19 years ago now, and that machine has been working for 51 weeks a year for 19 years solidly, and it's still going. Which is the main part about running the CNC machines, is actually keeping them running. You need a full-time maintenance crew working all the time.
Got a greasing servicing program, so the machines are greased weekly. They're serviced on a fairly regular basis. Try and keep on top of it.
So Andy and I went to school together a million years ago. And we have the next well, I don't know how many generations below us, but Pete, wave down there, Pete. Say hello. There is a massive amount of handwork, curved work, still to carry on. So that comes into the carpentry team in the framing shop, and the person who runs the shop is Josh.
So in here we have 4 framing teams, which usually consists of 2 members per team, and we fettle what the machine can do. So we assemble it in a 2D form, ready for the site crew to erect it in 3D. It's actually a local job in Herefordshire. So what the areas you can see a 2-storey post, and you can see the floor rail, and then we have got the brace, And the way we make sure the brace fits nicely is with these steel pins. We call these podgers. And to apply the draw bore on that, we use a tool called an offset pricker, which gives us 2 mil of draw automatically. And then when the pin is applied, pulls up nicely, just like it would back in the day. This is the current job we're working on. And all the wall braces, they are pre-curved in here. They come in off the machine nice and square. We curve them on the Watkin bandsaw, and they're ready to be framed as and when the lads need it. These are the individual carpenter's marks. How it would have been done back in the day, we're still doing it in 2021. So the same rule applies. Every individual component has its own tag. Myself, having been here for 11 years and being trained up by some of the chaps now retired, it's my job now to show these lads what to do, framing wise, skills. And Sam has started from the bottom, and he's a very skilled member of the team now. And it's the same with Hugh. He's on his journey from site into framing. So yeah, it's now Sam's job to show him the ropes in here.
So it takes around about 3 years for each trainee to go from being a novice all the way through to being a fully competent oak framer. Here in the encapsulation workshop, we build all the panels that go around the outside of our oak frame homes, the walls and the roof, and Dan runs the encapsulation team.
This is our WEK 100. It's our panel framing machine, and the operator Mike will have all his components on the right hand side of our carousel, and as you can see, each component is put in one at a time in a series of different places, and the nail guns on the end will then fix the two ends of the timber together and then slowly move down towards us, putting each individual stud in. So Mike has now set the machine to do the nailing of the perimeter and the studs of the actual panel. It's now going to come along and nail them at 100mm centres all across the panel, and you'll see it will start at one end and work in a specific process. The machine can build the panels a lot more accurate to within squareness and where positionings of openings are without the need of measuring or any sort of tape measures and things like that. And it's also a lot quicker with nailing in studs than a human being can be. So our butterfly tables will now come up. So the panel is now turned over and the internal face of the panel is now exposed, ready to be insulated. We attach our lifting straps into the internal side of the panel. We then fix them in with a block, able for them to be transported in the workshop and on site for them to lift off and fit into the house. So previously we would have cut some of these parts by hand on a chop saw, which takes a considerable amount, probably double the amount of time that this machine can do it in. This machine takes the timber, optimises the length it can get out of it, so reduces the waste, therefore creating a more efficient product for us. I have worked at Oak Wrights for about 10 years. I started off working on site. I then left site to go to work into the oak framing workshop. I did about 2 or 3 years in there, and then my last remaining years I've been in encapsulation.
We're now here in the Eaves and Verge workshop, and along with the Eaves and Verge that Toby and Harvey build in this workshop, we have the dormer windows.
The dormer comes in pretty bare, it's just the cassette. This is the verge, and then the eave connects on the sides, and then we build them all on here. These are the jigs, so this is the verge jig and eave jig. We fit all the finial and dummy ridge as well, and then if you come around to the side, soffit isn't finished at the moment, but all the soffit connects, and then we build it all onto the cassette as well. So I'm able to build it under the roof in the dry, able to paper and tape it, and also on site it'll take a lot longer because obviously up and down the scaffolds it takes about a day to build in here, but it could be like 2 to 3 days on site. So I've been working for Oak Wrights just over 3 years. I've been working on Eaves and Verge for about a year now.
This is what goes on the outside of a house. It gives you your inner and outer oak rafter. It makes the house look as though it's got a cut roof.
So I personally build these in the workshop behind us. Depends on what the sizing of the verge is, but that tends to take about an hour or so. If you're building it on site, it'll take probably around double that.
I hope you've enjoyed today's videos on all the different sections, right from the history of Oak Wrights through to where we are now and where we're going in the future with investment in more machinery, more technology to build a higher quality oak frame, encapsulation and insulation system.